Hello, hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode. I'm really, really excited about this one. We have an incredible guest speaker, Miss Zainab. She is a feminine embodiment coach, and I'm just so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be here with you as the pleasure queen.
Yeah.
So it is so amazing. Thank
It
you.
is. Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up too. Pleasure Queens. Like the minute we entered into a clubhouse room together, I think is where we first met.
Mm,
And from that instant, we've been kind of following each other around on social media, and our messages are so deeply aligned.
mm.
And I just knew that I had to have you come speak on this podcast and share your magic and share your pleasure queen gift with this world. So, with that being said, do you want to tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, absolutely. So I am a feminine embodiment and EFT coach. And I like to say EFT because I that is my main framework when it comes to helping my clients reach emotional abundance. And the root of my work is self-love and self-worth. And through accessing and embodying our self worth and our love for ourselves, we access that through your feminine energy, through embodiment practices, and through EFT. And when I think about feminine embodiment, it's like making love with your body,
Mm,
learning the
yes.
language of your needs and your feelings, and unmet and unacknowledged feelings that is held in our body, especially as women. We also hold it in our womb, just gets stuck up in our body. And when I first started learning more about the emotional body, it was when I got into EFT, because before I was a mindset coach, and I transitioned. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, where residue of emotional pain that is stored in the cells of our body. And when I think about the opposite of that and the work that I do to help women to release that emotion, all of those emotions stuck in our body, I think of the pleasure body. When you can
Yes.
fully take time and deepen your experience with pleasure and heal your relationship with your body through more pleasure and feeling and honoring your full body.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I really help my clients learn how to tap into that, how to tap into their most divine, fucking amazing, bald, feminine energy, and feeling super rooted in who they are and their authenticity, and bringing that into their business, their creation, their vision, their leadership.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I love it. And there's so many things that I want to dive into just off of that. First thing, for the listeners, do you want to let them know what EFT stands for? Because I know that yeah.
I always forget that part. So EFT is emotional freedom technique, which is commonly known as tapping. And I want to explain that tapping is basically like emotional acupuncture, where you're tapping on your meridian points to release stuck emotions in your body. And this could be related to your beliefs, this could be related to physical pain, trauma, PTSD, an addiction.
Yeah.
um Tapping is amazing.
Yes. And you guys, she actually does like tapping on her Instagram that you can follow along with, that I highly recommend. I've done some of them and love them. And tapping has been such an interesting resource for me, because I never would have thought that, like, those meridians that you were talking about, how you can really neutralize what you're saying. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the whole point, but that's what it's like, the effect that it's had on me is like, I'm experiencing these emotions, I'm experiencing these feels. And when I'm doing the tapping, I'm neutralizing it so it doesn't seem as big.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And that's what it is. And I think the most powerful thing about tapping, uh, is is the fact that we are acknowledging what we're feeling.
Yes. I was
We are, yeah, literally acknowledging what you're feeling and holding yourself with compassion and love is so underrated and
yeah.
so powerful. And this is where you get to literally alchemize your pain into self empowerment, into pleasure. And like you said, like you are neutralizing it. And I like to think of tapping as like you have the liberation process where you
Mm,
are liberating yourself of what you're feeling. And the way that you're liberating yourself is by acknowledging it.
yes.
That's how you can move through it. Like the only way is through,
I love that. I literally just got chills. It's so true. And what's interesting is and why it was so intriguing for me and why I didn't understand it when I first started practicing it is because we're always taught to not go through it. We're always taught to suppress. We're always taught to not focus on what you don't want in a sense, right?
Yes.
And with tapping, it's been such an incredible acceptance of what you're experiencing. And I feel like that
Mhm.
acceptance has been such a game changer for me because it's not like I'm avoiding my pain anymore. It's like you said, alchemizing it and turning it into my pleasure, which loved how you said that.
Thank you. Yeah, you're so right. And when I think about what we've been taught when it comes to our emotions, especially when like positive psychology began, it was like ignore the negatives, suppress
Mhm.
it, or the more you give power to the negatives, it's like the more it has power over you, which we are learning that is not really the
Yeah.
case. The only way that I want to acknowledge that we're all living a human experience. We're all humans here, and acknowledging our emotions is a part of acknowledging our humanity.
Yeah.
And when we can feel it all, we can literally have it all because we're willing to feel the spectrum of our emotions. And
Mm.
if we look at pleasure, how can you fully dive into your pleasure without looking at the pain, without looking at the stuff that you've held in your body?
Yeah. And that's a beautiful transition to what I wanted to ask you next
Yes.
is those things that we do hold on to in our body, like they play a role in everything and it manifests itself into so many different ways. Do you kind of want to speak to different ways that things that maybe you don't want in your life, you can be holding on into your body, particularly your womb space. And yeah, just like how that manifests into your actual reality.
Okay. So what um for me, holding pain in my body, like there's no way for me to escape it. I know sometimes we feel like if we repress it, we can escape it, but no, it really does show up in many, many different ways. And it's funny because when we look at our triggers, we can be triggered with different scenarios, but when we actually take a look at them, we can see that the root of all of the triggers are the same. So when the way that things come up for me is through, like, it shows up in the way that I show up in my business,
Yeah.
in certain beliefs that I have, certain conditionings that I have. It shows up in my relationship, whether that's with a woman or that's with a man, like an intimate or platonic relationship. It shows up in my finances.
Mm-hmm.
It shows up in so many aspects. And for me, one of the things that I was working through was unworthiness.
Yeah.
And unworthiness was showing up as constantly doubting myself. And I would be like, why am I always doubting myself? Questioning if I know enough, feeling guilty for believing in myself and honoring myself. And all
Mm.
of these things just show up. And I feel like there's no way to actually ignore it. You actually have to kind of be like, yeah, like I see that and I'm just going to ignore it,
Yeah.
because they do play sometimes I feel like it's just so obvious to us.
Yeah, it's like that, having the awareness to be like, okay, like this is clearly something that's blocking me, whether it's in your relationship, finances, business, self-worth, which I feel like ultimately everything comes down to self-worth.
Yeah.
That's like the underlying of my business and my podcast. It's like remembering our unconditional worthiness.
Exactly.
And I think in our society these days, it's like your worth is based off of your achievements, off of what you have and or what you don't have in a sense. And I'm just glad that we have women like you and I who are changing that paradigm around self-worth, because it's heavy. It's a heavy
Right.
burden. Yeah.
It is. And what you said about how we define our worth by achievements, it almost, what came up for me was like the way a lot of us are operating from our wounded masculine, where
Yes.
it's like we're constantly looking for the next thing to make us feel good. And
Yeah.
the aspect of the feminine is self acceptance and compassion with where we are right now and who we are being,
Hmm.
and knowing that as we are being, we are worthy. Like we are worthy just by being.
Yeah, just by being.
Just by
Yes.
being.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm so happy we're going here now. Okay, let's talk about this. We've been operating, our society as a whole has been operating in the disempowered masculine for far too long. And it's showing. It's showing
Mhm.
in awful and very, very sacrificial and unfortunate ways. And it's just very, very unfortunate. And
Yeah.
that is why it's so important that we shift to having a empowered feminine and an empowered masculine, because I always like to say, like,
Yeah.
there's like 5 different components to the masculine and feminine energy. And let me know what your outlook on this as well, because I'm curious. But I always say, like, there's the disempowered masculine, the disempowered feminine, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and then the magic one is the divine sacred union of the two.
Mhm. So
Um,
powerful.
and I think that that's really the route that our world is starting to take now, because we're realizing that the old way of doing things, it's not working.
Not working.
Yeah. Period.
Not working. Like, period. Like the old business model, the old framework of like building a business with the hustle and grind is not working. And quite frankly, we are risking our health just
Hmm.
for achievement. Like it's not just like the amount of people who are operating from the masculine, from the wounded masculine energy, you're risking your health because you're suppressing so much.
Yep.
You're working to the point of burnout. You're ignoring your health. You think that rest isn't, like, maybe you're afraid of rest,
Yeah.
and
Oh my
these are
gosh, yeah.
all like
Totally.
damaging. Yeah.
It's like you start operating off of stress hormones, and like stress hormones literally create disease in your body. And I mean, I myself came from a very masculine workforce, and it was always hustle, 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 grind, 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 neglect everything else outside of your career. And I had that awakening. I was like, I was at the time 24 years old.
Mm.
I should not be feeling like I'm an unhealthy 54-year-old.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah, it's like, why am I doing this to myself? And that ultimately led to me leaving my 9 to 5 and
Mm.
building my own business with ease and pleasure and
Yes.
grace and flow.
Yes.
So my question to you is, like, how did you have some form of awakening that was like, okay, I can't do life this way anymore? Or have you always been naturally in tune with that feminine?
Such a great question. Honestly, I feel like last year when I was starting my business, I was doing all of the strategies and I was like, this feels like complete shit. Like,
Yeah,
feels like shit.
literally.
Yeah. And you know what I realized? I had a lot of masculine energy, but majority of it was wounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like my need to be in control and feeling like I had to be like perfect. I have to go after every goal. I have to go after every achievement. I have to always be constantly like hustling and growing and like
Nonstop. Yeah.
yeah. And I was operating from a very wounded place. And as I've um dive deeper into my own work, I realized that I unearthed so much of my feminine, and it feels so freaking good.
Yeah.
Like it's so beautiful to acknowledge my feminine.
Mhm.
And I will say the entry point was through EFT, and at
Mm.
first acknowledging my emotions, which we know is it's a big part of the feminine
Yeah.
feeling. And that's when I started to dive in deeper into my feminine energy, to
Yeah.
the point where I'm like, okay, it can't be too much of my feminine.
It's the divine sacred union. You need
Yeah,
both.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm in the process of learning every day the way that I love to function and the way that I love to build my business. And I love to say that I can't really compare my business to anyone else. I can't even
Yes.
dare try that because I built a business that fits to my
Yes.
lifestyle.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And it's a very wild feminine business. And sometimes there's no logic to it because the feminine
There
isn't
is no,
logical.
yeah. I love this so much because I can relate like more than you know. And I just love how you said too that um, you're finding what works for you and what you love. And this is where I see personally, especially with my clients, so many beginner entrepreneurs and particularly women coaches go
Yeah.
wrong because they think there's a right way to do it. And
Yes.
they
Yes.
focus so much on finding the secret, finding the right strategy, finding the answer when it's literally there isn't one.
There isn't one, like,
Yeah.
honestly, there is, and I think that's part of, like, I almost wanna say, like, the wounded masculine where we feel like there's, like, one right way of doing things.
Yeah, it's like
There's
black and
so
white.
Yeah, exactly, there's so many ways, and also understanding that our growth in our business isn't always gonna be linear, like,
Hmm.
let's just yeah. Let's
Get
just
that out of there. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you're so right. Like when I first started, girl, I searched high and low for all
Yep.
the strategies. And I was like, why don't I feel aligned with any of them? If there's a right way to do it, quote unquote, right way to do it, why don't I feel good about it?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Exactly. The right way for you to run your business is what feels in alignment for you. Like end of story.
Exactly.
And that's truly when you're embodying the more feminine side of you, the more feminine essence. And this, by the way, for the listeners, we are not talking about binary gender. This is
Yeah.
literally energy, and both
Yes.
both man, female, non-binary, like we all have this masculine and feminine energy within us. So I just wanted to make sure
Perfect.
we didn't say that at the
Yeah.
beginning either. So
I love like making sure that people know that it's genderless.
yeah,
Like it doesn't
exactly.
pertain to gender at all.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
so true. And like it's interesting too, because I see this come up in my relationship too. Naturally, I am it comes easier for me to be in my masculine. Like
Mhm.
that's just how I operate. But I
Mhm.
get to consciously choose to be more in my feminine because I love that feeling. I love the feeling of surrender
Mhm.
and being and receiving. Um,
Mhm.
and at the beginning and majority of my relationships, let me know if you can relate. I was so in that disempowered masculine, over controlling, over like overbearing, always need to do and tell someone what to do. And
Oh
it
my
was
God, that's
just,
me.
yeah,
That was me. That
yeah.
was me.
And it's so amazing to like make the shift because not only when you enter into the more feminine role in the relationship, you're also giving the opportunity for the masculine role to thrive. Uh,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's been a
I
game
totally
changer.
I totally agree with that. And um, you know, my one of the things that I found in my journey with being open to receiving the feminine was, it was like you said, it was a conscious decision. And
Mm-hmm.
what I would do is, because sometimes our work or a 9 to 5 can be very masculine, and we're spending majority of our day in our masculine energy, and then taking
Totally.
that into our relationship and etc. And I think integrating moments of your feminine energy into your workday is so powerful, because it
Yes.
allows you to remember, and you aren't stuck into one state of being.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start to constantly operate from that, it's really hard to shift into relaxing and slowing down, because your body's like, we don't know what that is. Like
What
this
is
is
that?
so foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah. And taking moments out of your day to 5 minutes, breathe, take a moment to see how your body's feeling. Take a moment to experience pleasure, and pleasure outside of sexuality, drinking
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful glass of cold water, looking at the sun, taking 5 minutes to step out of your apartment, your house, and being around like nature for five
Mm-hmm.
minutes. It doesn't have to be such big changes. It could just literally be the small things that you integrate into your life.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's literally like the premise of this podcast too. It's like
Mhm.
prioritizing your pleasure. It's called pleasurable success. So it's literally like, how can you thrive while succeeding? Right. Because
Mm.
so often we think of success and we think of having to burn out and hustle and not enjoy
Yeah,
life. And like, it's so like tunnel vision versus like,
yeah.
I can succeed while going outside and watching the sunrise and sunset. I can succeed while drinking that nice icy cold water and experiencing it fully and being so present in that moment. Um,
Absolutely. Yes.
it's that like, oh, that is where the magic lies, listeners. Like, if you haven't already done this, and I'm going to ask you this too, Zainab,
Mhm.
like, what are some other ways that you love to incorporate more of like the feminine essence, feminine energy into the masculine structure of your business?
Good question. So, for me, when it comes to, let's say, content creation,
Mm,
I am not okay. So, I like to plan, like, by quarters or even by month, it depends. But I also like to allow space for my feminine to be like, okay, well, today I want to speak on this. I want to
yep.
create something different. I want to feel something different. So I really allow myself space for my feminine to feel safe in that way. I have my structures, my back end stuff set up in a
Yeah.
way where, like, it makes sense. Like, my structure is already set up, so my
Yeah.
feminine can fully feel open to experiencing and being wild and feeling safe. And yeah, that's what I do. And I spend a lot of time, like, in my mornings, the day of my work days, feeling into my body,
Hmm.
calibrating abundance and pleasure into my body before I start my work day.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important thing is honoring my body and honoring my humanity.
Hmm. And I love,
So
because by the way, you just took like a break off social media during your moon as well, right? Like, loved
yeah,
that.
yeah. And I was like, you know what? I've come to realize that, like, if I'm not in a good place, if I'm not healthy, there's no business. Like,
Exactly. Oh my gosh. This,
there's no business.
this is literally the truth. And I say this to my clients, and I'm going to say it on here. People do not have business problems. They have problems internally that show up in their business.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's just facts, you know? And
Yeah.
for so long, like, people are like, "Oh, what's wrong with my business? What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with my strategy?" And it's like, "Girl, look within."
Look within. And, taking that time off of social media was the best thing that I could do for myself, because it allowed me to fully step into presence,
Hmm.
fully step into that. And it is now becoming a part of my spiritual practice, and disconnecting because, and I love to say, like, rest is a money making activity. Let's be
Yes.
real. When you can rest, rejuvenate, recharge, like this is a brilliant way for you to open yourself up to receiving and to also step into and embody the belief that everything that you want can still come your way. You can still
Yes.
magnetize while you're resting.
Boom.
Like,
Yes.
that's
That's
it.
and that's where so much fear comes in. People don't believe that because we haven't been
Yeah.
taught to believe that. And
Mhm.
like I'm someone who believes fully in a life by design and a business by design. And I know I've talked about this with you a little bit on my masterclass that I hosted.
Mhm.
And it's like you get to create the reality. And I'm not just talking about like manifesting what you want, but I'm talking like giving a meaning to something because nothing has meaning
Absolutely.
except for the meaning you're giving it. Um,
Mhm.
and so I made this meaning up. I made this new belief system, this new reality for myself that the more I
Mhm.
play, the more money I make.
For
Right.
sure.
And
Yeah.
it's like, you get to do that for like whoever's listening, you get to do that for your business. Like, however you want to be running your business, you can.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. And, I spoke on certain beliefs that were hard for me to hold as a
Mm,
woman of color. And we also
yes.
have to like recognize that some of us have a lot of deconditioning to do because if you've been told your whole life you have to work hard, especially a lot, what I've noticed for a lot of, is it second generation when your parents are immigrants or first generation?
I think you're first gen if your
Okay,
parents are
first gen.
immigrants.
Yeah. With immigrant parents, they've had to work much harder because they've always been like, get an education, work hard, then you'll make money. And it's like, this is something that we've learned ever since we were a child. And for us, when it comes to experiencing sometimes pleasure or rest, we hear our parents, we
Mm-hmm.
hear the conditioning that we've been taught. And
Yeah.
it takes deconditioning and it takes active, like taking active or conscious decisions to go against those beliefs and to create a new set
Yeah.
of beliefs. And
Fuck
with
yeah.
yeah, and with EFT releasing, you're able to release the intensity of the emotion, release the resistance in your body, in your cellular
Mm.
structure, and it
Mm.
becomes easier to really hold space for that belief in
Yeah.
that belief system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like it's so much more of an unlearning.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I was just going to say too that you have to be an active participant in your unlearning, which is like such a weird thing, such a estranged concept. But it's
Mhm.
like being an active participant and consciously choosing to rewire, reprogram, to say no when old patterns are coming up.
Yeah.
And like you said, like women of color, there's like all this resistance, like more than I could even ever imagine.
Mhm.
And I'd
Mhm.
love for you to speak to that. I know you're speaking on it on your story recently, and I would love
Yeah.
for you to share that with my audience because it's so wildly important.
Yeah, for sure. So, when it came to holding racial trauma is something that a lot of us women of color, humans of color experience. And it's not just our own trauma, but it's generational trauma.
Mm,
And realizing that we're not just holding our own trauma, but we're holding our ancestors' trauma. So
yes.
there's a lot to unpack there. So when we think about the way that we've been conditioned and the way that we've been raised, it's a completely different experience. And
Mhm.
sometimes we have to honor that our experiences aren't just like limiting beliefs. But
Mhm.
like you said, we still have to take active participation in unlearning those things. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's not our fault that we've been taught that, but we still have to take active participation to unlearn it
Yeah.
and to create a new narrative. And I don't want that to come off as bypassing the reality of racism or discrimination or prejudice.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Is prejudice a word?
Yeah, sure. I think so. We'll roll with it.
Okay. That is so hilarious. Yeah. And, for me, I had to really look into the way that racism has affected me
Mm,
and my own conditioning and what I was raised to believe as a Black woman,
yeah.
and then start to rewire my body to be open to my new narrative.
Mhm.
And for me personally, when I was speaking about it, I was like, okay, well, I've always been told I have to work 10 times harder than my white counterpart.
Mhm.
So the idea or the belief of work less, make more money was like, they were like
So
contradictory.
contradictive, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to unlearn, and I did this through EFT. I had to unlearn the conditioning that I don't have to work 10 times harder.
Yeah.
And
And
then yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, go right ahead. I'm interested.
And then learn that I can work less and make more money. I can
Yeah.
experience pleasure. I could be fully open to experiencing pleasure and joy and make more money.
Mhm. Yeah. That's so, so powerful. And thank you so much for speaking to that because it's so heavy. It's
Mhm.
so heavy. It's so deep and it goes beyond what it's really even able to comprehend because, like you
Yeah.
said, it's ancestral.
Yes.
And so you're not just doing the unlearning for yourself, you're doing it for your lineage.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Mm.
And you're breaking the generational curse. You're literally
Yeah.
breaking that. And I want to say to your humans of color on here that be compassionate for yourself in this process. It's literally an unlearning of
Mhm.
generational shifts.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
you know,
hundreds of years.
yeah, exactly. And I always find that EFT is one of the most powerful ways to rewire your nervous system, to rewire your subconscious mind,
Mm.
and to calibrate exactly what you want
Yeah.
in your body. Yeah, and know that you are doing your best and you are doing whatever you can. And I commend you for breaking the curse and for taking that step.
Mm.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
that. Thank you. Thank
You're
you
so
so
welcome.
much for speaking to that. It's so important. One thing that I also would love, I would so love your outlook and insight on, and you brought it up earlier. We've talked about it a bit in a clubhouse before, but it's about the womb space and
Ooh,
the
yeah.
yes, we're going there. And like the energy of sex, which is what that topic was in the clubhouse room, which whew, that was spicy and so good.
Yes.
So I'd love to make that shift and start to get your insight on just women and their womb space and that relationship and then the energy of
Mm,
sex.
yeah. So I find as women, we carry a lot of shame.
Hmm.
And I think that when we also look as just women, we have to also look at like the mother wound and
Hmm.
what our mother went through and our grandmother and so on, and the shame that they've carried,
Yeah.
and shame really cuts you off from your potency, and it's literally the lowest frequency emotion. And for us, it's carried in our female autonomy, it's carried in our womb.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that and there's so much to go into this, so
I
I'm
know.
gonna
It
try
was
to
a
like,
loaded question.
right? And I also feel like for women, like the way we're primed for receiving and experiencing joys of pleasure. And I think that we have unfortunately um our body has been used as object of like just for pleasure. Like we're just giving,
Yeah.
you know?
And we're supposed to be receiving. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the most important way for you to start to release shame is giving yourself that pleasure first.
Yeah.
And it's through exploring your feminine energy, it's through receiving, practicing loving yourself, practicing compassion, holding yourself as a sacred being. Is
Mm-hmm.
that when you can start to really release that shame that is held in your body,
Yeah.
and forgiving yourself for anything that you've done that has caused you shame, especially anything that has been sexual.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like, the topic of sexual abuse or sexual assault is something that a great majority of women have experienced
Mm-hmm. Oh,
within
for
our
sure.
society.
Yeah.
And it's these wounds can really block our ability to express our authentic femininity and feel pleasure.
Yep.
And, for this, I would definitely say being able to go to therapy for that, being
Mm-hmm.
able to start diving into deeper into your feminine energy will help you start to release the shame that you're holding
Yeah.
in your womb space, and start to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to that. This is something that I've really dived into because it's been so relevant for me in my life. And, you know, sexual trauma, sexual abuse, like that can be as like, and I don't want to use the word big or small, but
Yes.
just to make it simple for the listeners, it can be
Mhm.
something really big or it can be something small that lingers
Yeah.
in your body. And our yonis and our womb spaces are sponges for
Yes.
that energy, and it keeps it trapped. And it's so important. And I'm gonna share something personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there.
We're holding space for you,
Yeah,
girl.
thank you. I had experienced two things:
Mhm.
numbness in my yoni. I was
Mm.
quite literally not able to fully experience the pleasure in the bedroom while having sex.
Wow.
I was literally numb because of the shame that I was holding in that space. So
Mm.
I had to do some major forgiveness and release work in that area. And when I did, is like full on, like, give me all the turned on energy. I'm here for it. I get it. Like, and it was like, I stepped back into that wild feminine essence goddess of like, I'm here to receive.
Yes.
And when that happened, everything changed in my business.
Mm.
What I hadn't explored up until this past week was healing my womb space. And uh, because I didn't even think to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really didn't even think to do it. I thought, oh, like I know my body, whatever. And I was in the bathtub and I was
Mm.
having an experience with my a pleasure treasure that, by the way, listeners, you'll learn about what I'm about to be speaking about soon. But it was releasing these tension and pressure points around your womb space.
Mhm.
Zainab, I literally, like, as soon as I put the pressure, took a breath and exhaled, I just started sobbing. Like,
Mm.
no apparent, quote unquote, apparent reason. It was just literal emotion being released that was held in that space.
Yes.
And so, but again, like, I just had the willingness to explore that. Right.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I think we often forget about our womb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, when I was first starting off with feminine embodiment, like I was like, womb, what is that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Like, I was like, okay. And I think when I really started to get into, actually, I'm curious, what got you, like, how did the womb part come about, the womb
Yeah.
healing?
Yeah. So I'm basically, I was gifted what's called a pleasure treasure by this company I'm an affiliate with, which I told you all about,
Yeah.
And so when I got that and I received it in the mail, it comes along with a guided meditation or a guided pleasure practice.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so special. And the wand that I got was called Heal Me. And that I just chose that wand because it just like I was called to it. I was like, yeah, heal me. Like that's I just knew, yeah. Heal me. I just knew that that was the one that I was meant to work with. And the guided meditation has you release those pressure points around your womb space and in your vagina, like literally going against the walls of your vagina, pressuring those
Wow.
points. Girl, yes, it's intense and necessary. But that's how I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to explore. And I pressed play. And the first thing was releasing any tension in your womb space.
Mm, so powerful. I love that. I think when I started to dive more deeper into womb
Mhm.
healing was learning more about my cycle.
Yeah.
Yes. And diving deeper into, like, just actually, first it started off. So I do this thing some mornings where I do a self massage.
Hmm.
So I massage my stomach area and sort of like my womb area.
Hmm.
And I check for any pressure, any discomfort.
Hmm.
And as I was checking, I would notice like there is pressure around my womb. And
Hmm.
it's like, okay, what is this? And I started to learn more about how we hold a lot of emotions, especially our sexual trauma
Yep.
within our womb,
Yeah.
in our sacral area. And as I was learning more about uh, my own moon cycle, I just kind of naturally became curious and started diving deeper into it. And I did a womb ceremony
Mm.
meditation, and I bawled,
Yeah.
I bawled. I was
It's
like,
intense.
yeah, it really is. And, there's moments where, like, some days, if I just breathe into it, just take a moment to breathe into it, I start to cry.
Hmm.
And there's so much that we have held in there ever since we were young.
Yes.
And the more that I cry, the more I'm happy to cry, because it's
Yeah.
like I'm literally releasing so much pain that is stored in there, and shame that is stored
Hmm.
in there. And our womb space is honestly such a magical area. Um, of our body, and it is the seat of our feminine and our creativity and our sexual power.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. When I was in that bathtub sobbing my eyes out, my face was like the Kim Kardashian cry, like, but it felt so good. It was like, I,
Right?
yeah, like I knew I needed it and I wanted it and I was like ready
Right.
for it. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that because that's so true. Like there's emotion. We think expressing emotion, crying, sobbing is like looked at as weak and not good or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
like, it's so beautiful and so magical.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like holding yourself in that moment really opens up your pleasure gates. Like, it
Mhm.
literally, like, holding yourself sacred in that moment is so important.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, think of the message that you're sending to your body. It's like,
Hmm.
I am being held and honored and loved right now.
Yeah. And no one, and you are the one providing yourself that.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and that's something too, ladies who are, and ladies and men who are listening. Um, it's so often we look outside of us to have that space be held and to be loved in that sort of way, or to be healed even, right? We look outside
Mm,
of us through
yes.
coaches, therapy, relationships, sex, whatever.
Yes.
And it is the most powerful and sacred thing when you can be the one to provide yourself that. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. When you can start to learn to look inward, is
Mm.
such a powerful thing. And sometimes, like, it could just be, we can start off slow.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be a slow, like 5 minutes a day, especially when we've been used to being so disembodied and so numb that we
Mm-hmm.
don't know our body. It's like it's like
Yeah.
foreign to us, although we live in it every day. Um, just doing that 5 minutes a day, like, there's no need to have everything figured out right away.
Yeah.
There's no need for that. Mm-mm.
Why
Like,
rush it? Like, and
right?
that's literally like the opposing of what you should be doing, because the feminine is slow and
Yes,
present and experiences it all. It's not like a destination.
exactly, exactly. So well said.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. I have another question. We're transitioning now
Okay.
into the energy of sex. And I'm
Okay.
so
Cool,
like,
cool.
you and I could talk about this forever. I know we could.
Yes, I
But
love sex.
I love sex too. And I'm curious, it's been so taboo. Like, and I don't know if it was that I was raised where sex is so taboo
It
and
was,
just same.
it was so taboo.
Yeah.
So,
And so how did you enter into the world of like speaking and embodying what you practice or what you preach rather, which is like this very sacred energy when it comes to sex? Like, how did you even get to this place?
mm, such a good question. So I, w- like I said, like in on the clubhouse that we were speaking on, I had experience of having sex with multiple people,
Mm-hmm.
and I was learning so much about myself. And like, one of the things that I found was that because sex was so taboo in my family, I was learning about it through having sex with multiple people and learning
Mm-hmm.
about myself. And as I was learning, just the energy exchange,
Yeah.
who I'm choosing to lay down with. And I started to feel just different energies and just feel like, is my body receptive to this person?
Mm, I love that.
And sometimes it could be subtle, because sometimes we can think, yes, this person is fucking attractive and I want to fuck them, but
Yeah.
then we're not getting wet
Mm-hmm.
and we're closing up. Like, it's
Yeah.
just small movements where we're just like, our body is literally closing up.
Yeah.
And those are signals that we also have to pay attention to when when our body doesn't feel safe, our
Yeah.
energy doesn't feel safe to receive any type of pleasure from this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to note that as women, it is imperative that we learn about our own sexuality. It is
Yeah.
imperative,
Yep.
despite what we've been taught. And I've been taught in a very religious home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and learning about who it is you're opening yourself up to, the energy you're opening yourself up to. Because I think one of the ladies mentioned in the clubhouse, like, when a man is coming in you, even if it's with a condom, still like that energy release in you.
Exactly.
And their energy could be completely off. And then you hold that, like, as you said, your womb is a sponge, you hold that in,
Yep.
and then you're just carrying that in your body unless you actually like do a ceremony of releasing.
Yeah.
And I find that we have been taught in our society that sex is so bad, especially for women, that being in your sexual power is so bad. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's just a way to shame women
Yep.
and a way to scare
Keep them
women,
small.
keep them
Yeah.
small. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's even more important for you to own your sexuality. And I was learning through different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And there's moments where I'm like, oh my God, why did I fucking do that?
Right? Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and I had to learn through trial and error.
Hmm.
And I first came or masturbated through with the toy when I was like 18.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know I could
The
do
ultimate awakening.
this, right? Like it's so cool. And I just started learning. I really just started learning and feeling more comfortable with my body and my own sexuality.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. I can resonate and relate so much. The first thing that you had said, which I think is really important to tap into, is we are taught like sex education around like the biology, like what is it? I don't even know the word, but yeah, our
Yeah,
biology.
yeah,
And we're not even taught about the energy and sacredness of sex and relationships, which to me is
yeah,
just so mind blowing
yes.
because our biology is literally just one tiny piece of a puzzle to this very sacred puzzle.
Mm, yes, exactly. And it's like, and then they've always said, don't have sex. Like,
Exactly.
can we
Yeah.
not? Like, can we
Yeah.
actually not? Like, people are gonna have sex. It's a part. We should have sex.
Exactly. Like they treat it as it's like this super taboo thing when in fact it's life force itself.
Yes.
Like it's literally life giving. And
Mm,
for those who are listening, we are not like what we're saying and what we're not saying is like be intentional, like make the shift from having a quick fuck to just get it over with to being
mhm,
so much more intentional with who you're choosing to have sex with, when you're choosing to have sex with that person, why you're having sex with that person, and like just having it be a more sacred experience versus what we've been taught to do, which is just um, give, right? Be a body, be a warm
exactly.
body. You said that, I
Yes.
think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's so important. Like, as for women, like, stepping into our power requires stepping into our sexual power and being
Hmm.
able to say no,
Yep.
being able to say yes,
Yeah.
and also knowing what we like in the bedroom. Like I've heard so many women say that they like fake
Oh
orgasms, and
yeah.
I'm like, listen, I want to enjoy sex. I'm not playing that game. Like, we're not doing
Yeah.
that, you know?
It's so,
Um,
ladies, if you're faking an orgasm, no shame, but change
mhm.
it
Yeah.
because without you making that conscious change, like they're never like men or whoever you're having sex with, doesn't have to be man
Mhm,
or woman or whatever.
mhm.
Like they're never gonna know.
Yeah, they're never gonna know. And
Yeah.
you deserve, you are worthy of feeling that type of pleasure. Let
Hmm.
me just tell you that. You are completely worthy of feeling that type of pleasure.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
possible.
yes, 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 yes. It's totally possible for sure. For sure.
Amazing. Thank
Mhm.
you. Okay, I want to keep talking about this though because this is really
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
Where would someone even begin to start with like healing their sexual trauma, their sexual shame? Like, I mean,
Mhm,
their shadow, as if like
mhm,
sex is lingering over them, like this bad taboo thing that they're not supposed to be
mhm,
doing, or it's dirty or
mhm,
evil or whatever they
mhm.
think. Where can they start to mend that relationship?
Good question. So, when we're talking about in the realm of trauma, I would definitely look at someone who's trauma informed when it comes to sexuality. I think that's really important to get the most benefit. Um, Definitely go to someone who is a trauma informed therapist that can really help you with that. And then, when it comes to sexual shame, I think you can still go to a therapist, but I think that the work that you can start to do is to start to move through the shame by releasing, feeling it, feeling what you've been told, feeling the conditioning, and then being able to let it go. And, the thing that I always speak about is EFT, because you're
Yes.
acknowledging it and then you can let it go. And you're doing that and you're literally moving the energy out of your body. And I think that's a really potent way for you to start to release the shame. And then tapping into your feminine energy is a powerful way for you to start to release shame. So the more that you start to practice and hold yourself, the more that you can experience compassion for yourself, the more that you can start to release that shame.
Yeah.
It literally dwindles, like it becomes less and less. And with your feminine embodiment practices, you are re-entering your body. You're starting to practice and learn how safety feels in your body.
Mm.
And I feel like with shame, it really rocks our nervous system. Like
Oh, for sure.
there's definitely that level of unsafety. And when you're in your body, you can start to feel safe in that and move through that. And dancing naked,
Mm-hmm.
dancing naked in front of the mirror,
Yeah.
feeling all of your body, literally taking your fingertips and feeling all of your body, feeling who you are and the amazingness of what your body has to give to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
I love
sure. I
it.
think that's when you can start really doing the work. But I would say for trauma, definitely see someone who is more trauma informed.
Yeah. Oh, love that. Thank you for saying that.
Mhm.
It's so true. Like, and I'm going to speak more about those feminine embodiment practices because,
Yes.
they have been, they've been a huge, huge, just like, I don't even know what the word is. It's just so powerful and has helped me so much in life, business, relationships, everything. Um, because for so long, I shamed being in my feminine, right? I had
Yeah.
such a big mother wound. And it was really important for me to first heal that mother wound for
Mm.
me to like feel safe in doing more feminine energy embodiment
Mm.
practices. Uh,
Yes.
so I would say too, like writing a letter to your mother guardian,
Feel that. That's so
so big.
powerful.
Yeah, like
So
that
good.
was, and not just once. Like it's not like you just, write a letter and burn it and then that wound is like all healed. It's like continue to do that. I write a letter to my mother wound at least once a month. Uh,
Mm.
it just allows me
Mm.
to forgive, to feel safe, to feel loved, supported, that compassion you were talking about.
Yes.
Um, because I think a lot of the reason why we don't explore and don't have that willingness is because it doesn't feel safe.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And sometimes shame is such a powerful emotion. I almost feel like shame is like at the fear level. When
Oh yeah.
fear paralyzes us, shame paralyzes us as well. And
Yeah.
it can seem like a really scary demon. And, when I first started the EFT, it helped me with my anxiety because I was getting anxiety attacks.
Mm.
And I remember looking at anxiety as this big fucking bad devil. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
fuck you.
Totally.
Right. And the first time I remember when I was like, my spiritual advisor, she was like, I want you to say, I love you, anxiety. Thank
Mm.
you for being here. I cried. And
Yes.
it was almost like I had, it took all the power away.
Exactly. I was
It
just gonna
took
say
all the
that.
power away. Like,
My God, chills all over my fucking body right now. Oh my God, I'm receiving this. Yes.
It took all the power away. And I think when we can really do that with shame
Hmm.
and even some of our most terrifying emotion, it really does take the power away from the emotion.
Yeah. Oh.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We are at our hour mark and I don't want to end this because I love it, but I want to be respectful of your time. Um, so I'm going to ask you one last question that I ask every single podcast guest to answer. And it is for the listeners, how
Mhm.
can they make their success a pleasure-filled experience?
Mm, okay. So, like you were saying, Sarah, the union between your feminine and your masculine
Hmm.
is going to be a big one. Learning which where you thrive in your masculine and learning where you thrive in your feminine.
Yeah.
Those are going to be so good for you. And pleasure, enjoying the process. Honestly, entrepreneurship can, like, we make it so scary. And when we can really step into presence and enjoy the process and the learning that we are experiencing, I find it so pleasurable.
Yeah.
And experiencing fun in your journey. Literally, that should be, you should be prioritizing fun. Like,
Yes. Oh, I love it. That's
don't
like,
kill yourself.
yeah, fucking love your life.
Right? Exactly. And experience more pleasure, like speak to people, have fun while you're speaking to people, meet new people, live your life, go skating, go outside, like I don't like literally do the things that bring you pleasure and fun, and integrate that into your journey of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Like literally make a conscious decision to experience pleasure
Yeah.
and fun.
Yeah.
And I can't say exactly what your pleasure looks like, because you know what you find fun. And make a list of things that you find fun and see how you can integrate that into your daily life, into growing your business. And also, life is not that serious.
Yes.
I'm
Oh my
just gonna
gosh.
say it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're going to get to where you want to go. And I feel like it's so much sweeter when we can really go through the journey and learn. Like, have you ever gotten something so fast and then you're just kind of like, you don't really enjoy it? Like, you're
Yes.
like, okay, that was so easy to get,
Yeah.
Whereas when it's something where you've put in the time, the effort, and I feel like it's so much sweeter.
Yes.
So
It
much
so is. Like I was just in a clubhouse a couple hours before this podcast,
Mhm.
and someone brought up such an important point that what you were just talking about. It's
Yeah.
like when we get something, we have about 16, I think she said 16 seconds of gratitude. And then we're like, all right, boom, let's go on to the next thing,
Right?
and
Exactly.
back in the lack. And it's like when you can, so silly,
Back
right?
in the line.
Yeah. And it's like when you can really just savor the experience, and instead of focusing what you don't have, fall in love with the journey and all it
Mm,
entails, and
yeah.
consciously choose the pleasure. It's like you said, chef kisses, you know?
Right. Yes, enjoy it. Like live your best life while you're building the business of your dreams. Like you don't want to get to the point. I've had a client where she worked so hard, like to the point of burnt out to get to six figures. And she was like, when she finally got there, she's like, I can't even enjoy it. I don't
Yeah,
enjoy it. Like, can you
exactly. And then
imagine
what's the
getting
point?
all that struggle for no reason? Like,
Yeah. It's
you
like
know?
you have to remember why you decided to go in business for yourself.
Yes.
And it wasn't to suffer.
Mm-mm.
It was to
Mm-mm.
enjoy the fuck out of your juicy life.
Yes, exactly. And, really honoring that feminine aspect of integrating fun, pleasure, and presence into your journey and your life, like that is going to be so important. And taking care of yourself, because please, please,
Yeah.
if you are burnt out, you're not only putting your health at risk, but like so many other things. Like you're not gonna really have a functional business
Yeah.
if you just keep burning out. So live your best life, honey and gents. Like live your best life. Yeah, you want to enjoy it. So I just say, yeah, integrate, find what works for you, find your pleasure, hold it sacred, and prioritize it. It's just as
Always.
important.
Yeah. Because if you have the quote unquote success and you're not enjoying it, love. It's not
There's-
success.
it was really not. And it's like, can you imagine getting to that point where you have the money in your bank account and you can't even feel the
Yeah.
abundance?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have. I can't imagine because
Mm,
I have.
yes,
Absolutely.
exactly. Like,
Like just to speak directly to that of what has been happening recently. And what's funny is I actually posted this on Instagram stories, and then I immediately was like, no, this is sacred. I want to keep this to myself. And I deleted it.
mm,
Uh,
mm.
but now I'm feeling super called to share it. So let's do it.
Okay,
Uh,
do it.
I have been ever since my move to Colorado, I have been so goal oriented on like
Mm,
what's next for my business.
mm,
And so much so that I started to not be pleasure oriented, even though I
mm.
teach this, right? I
Yeah.
teach my clients to prioritize pleasure. So I had that awareness that I was like, okay, I'm not practicing what I preach right now. And
Mhm,
I started experiencing nostalgia for what had happened or where I was in my life last year and the year before. And I was like, oh, I
mm.
miss those days. And
Yes.
and then I realized that when I was living those days, I was not enjoying it. And I was like, and I had
Mm.
this just aha moment, this epiphany. I was like, damn, I was never present.
Wow.
And now I'm looking back saying, oh, like that wasn't so bad. That was actually a really awesome experience that I had. But now I'm here and I'm like, damn, I wish I just would have been more present in the joy of that experience.
Yes, yes.
And I know I'm getting like really deep now, but it's like, okay, I had that,
So
like
powerful.
the universe, source, God, like it brought me that realization so that I could come
Mhm.
back and fully experience the pleasure in this moment and not be
Yes.
so living in the future.
Yeah, that's like that is one of the aspects of the masculine, so future thinking.
Hmm.
And I think one of the is fallacy the right word of
Yeah.
like,
Something that's not true.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
where like as entrepreneurs and when we compare ourselves to other people online, we think, okay, as soon as I make that 10K, as soon as I see those
Yes.
6 digits or 5 digits, no, 6 digits. Is it five? It's 5 digits.
5 digits. You got
It's
it. If you want
five.
6 digits though, I'm here for it.
As soon as I see those 6 digits in my account, I am going to be happy. Everything is going to fall in place. Ugh,
Yeah.
life is going to be so good. And then we get there and we're like, oh shit.
Yep. I want more. It's still not
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So learning
So
to really just enjoy the process and the journey. It's honestly so
exactly.
fun when you're present. It's
Hmm.
like, and then you can laugh at yourself because you're like, damn, it's not that serious.
Exactly. And when you're embodying that too, you're like so much more magnetic and everything does
Yeah,
just come easier for you. So it's like a win-win.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh, amazing. Well, Zainab, thank you so, so much. Like this has been
Thank you.
so enjoyable and I'm feeling so full right now. And
Right?
oh, I loved it. We'll have to have you on again sometime soon. But
Yeah.
before we end it, I would love for you to share where they can find you.
So you can find me on Instagram at Zainab.Benson. So ZAINAB.BENSON. And I am always open to chat. Please don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. My doors are always open and let's have a conversation. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Yeah.
Amazing. And all of her information is in the show notes.
Yeah.
Please check her out. She's such a powerhouse. I'm so grateful that we have crossed paths and we
Thank
immediately just
you.
had this very authentic and real connection. So I just
Yes.
appreciate you for being in my world, and
Thank
I'm so
you.
grateful for you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I loved it. And I just want to say thank you so much for being in my community. And I'm so humbled and grateful to be in yours.
Oh,
So let's continue fucking crushing it
yes, we will.
and living our best lives.
I love it. You heard the woman. Go out there, crush it, live your best life. And if you really enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Screenshot, post it on Instagram, tag Zainab and I. We would love and appreciate it. And have a beautiful day.